nucleus, do you see, exits together with motor portion and changes its position by Petros's fossil through the tympanic canal, enters into the tympanic cavity, where it gives, do you see, the vegetative portion through the microganglions to the mucous glands, and its last portion by nervus petrosus minor exits through the same hiatus, and through the oval opening comes to the otic ganglion, and after multiplication, after decreasing of the impulse, comes to the secretion tissue of the parotid gland. Why it comes to the otic ganglion? Because otic ganglion is placed on the branch of the trigeminal nerve. And for vegetative portion is easy to do here the decreasing of the impulse by multiplication, and for it is easy to continue its travel by trigeminal nerve. Here vegetative portion came by glossopharyngeal nerve and will continue its travel by trigeminal nerve. Ты что это такое? Кто там? Что ты, Ишан? Not, Ishan, I'm very busy. I don't have time for the finishing of my explanation for students. Now I will go with rector into the anatomical center. On Tuesday, please. And another sensory portion.
Which part was that? Was that sensory from the lesser?
This is aurica. This is mandible nerve. This is branch of the trigeminal. This is auricotemporal branch. Auricotemporal branch, do you see, on it is placed, do you see, vegetative ganglion. Capsule of the all vegetative ganglions are controlled by trigeminal nerve. And do you see, impulse by lesser petrosus nerve will come to the otic ganglion, and after that by auricotemporal branch. Auricotemporal branch controls the capsule of the parotid gland, and secretion tissue will be controlled by vegetative portion from glossopharyngeal. Did you understand?
Yes.
You can see in the palatine receptors, in the palatine tonsillar receptors, in the mucous membrane of the larynx, laryngeal receptors, in the mucous membrane of the pharynx, pharyngeal receptors, in the carotid tangent, carotid receptors, and in the posterior 1/3 part of the tongue will be, do you see, lingual receptors. They complete into the bundle, and this bundle is formed by dendrites, because the some dendrites will come to the inferior jugular ganglion and will locate their body, and after that will go to the solitarius nucleus. And some, do you see, dendrites will come to the superior ganglion, and after that will go to the solitarius nucleus. If will be, do you see, the inflammation of the palatine tonsil, you will get information, do you see, by glossopharyngeal nerve, not by trigeminal. If will be pharyngitis, you will get information by pharyngeal nerve. Do you understand? By glossopharyngeal nerve, it's pharyngeal part. Listen to me. Posterior 1/3 part of the tongue is controlled by glossopharyngeal nerve, but I want to recollect you. Anterior 2/3 parts, general sensotive, is controlled by trigeminal nerve. Taste sensotive is controlled by intermedial part of the facial nerve. Posterior 1/3 part, general and taste are controlled by glossopharyngeal nerve. Do you see carotid tangent? About what I want to inform you. About what I want to inform you. Sometimes people which have, do you see, some problems and abnormal condition of the consciousness, they want to finish their life by death, and they want to finish the life by loop. Do you see, loop? And 200 years ago, one professor did example for the understanding why person dies if it will hang by a loop. And at first he did examples by different animals. But to extrapolate result from this animal to the body is difficult. And he cannot do example with his students. He cannot do it hand to students. And he asked the colleagues to hang his body. And listen to me, when the person hangs the loop, presses this carotid tangent, and from it exits the very biggest portion of the adrenaline and develops the reflexogen shock. And for the development of the reflexogen shock must be 40 seconds. Before 40 seconds, you can take out from this reflexogen shock your patient. After 40 seconds, every time will be death. You cannot evacuate because these patients, they will die by reflexogen shock. This is one situation. If the loop will be above, for example, will connect to the ceiling, and the person will lose the base, from his feet, the loop will press very, fast with very biggest power this neck and the carotid tangent. Did you understand? And in 40 seconds later will develop shock, reflexogen shock. If there's some persons in the jail or in some special clinic where the persons with abnormal consciousness will connect their loop with back of the bed, with refrigerator, the loop will press, the loop will press neck very, very slowly. It can press very deeply, very strongly, but very, very slowly. Reflexogen shock will not develop. And you can help this patient maybe in the after 40 seconds, maybe after 40 minutes, because for the production of the reflexogen shock must be very fast, biggest power. Do you see? And you can see this is sensory portion of the glossopharyngeal nerve. This is whole glossopharyngeal nerve. It includes the motor portion, which controls only one style of pharyngeal muscle. It has vegetative part which by tympanic nerve enters into the tympanic cavity and through the microganglions controls the glands, and its next continuation exists by lesser petrosal nerve, comes to the branches of the trigeminal nerve to the otic ganglion, where it will by multiplication decrease the impulse, and after that by auricular temporal branch of the trigeminal nerve will enter into the secretion tissue of the parotid gland. Sensory branches, they have receptors, in the tonsil, in the soft palate, in the pharynx, in the larynx, on the tongue, and around of the carotid tangent. And and these branches, they have the same names: carotid, lingual, pharyngeal, laryngeal, palatine, tonsillar, and they are formed by dendrites, which started from receptors, and the bodies of these dendrites will locate in the jugular inferior ganglion, which will join from lower to the jugular open, or some of them will locate in the jugular superior, and after that will direct to the solitarius nucleus for the concrete analysis. This is glossopharyngeal nerve. Another nerve is vagus nerve. Is a very important nerve. It has a very biggest vegetative portion. It is king for the innervation of our vital functions, our internal organs. It is king for the innervation of the vegetative objects of the neck, thoracic cavity, abdominal cavity, upper medial floors, except lower floor, except pelvic box. Vegetative nerve, do you see, it has the following nuclei. Concretely, we will study with you the vagus nerve by third semester, because we will study concretely the vegetative system. Today we will produce attention for the study of its somatic part. Today we will do study more its somatic part, but I will inform you how it will go distally. You can see again brain stem, fourth ventricle, pons, medalia oblongata. You can see jugular opening. You can see here will be, do you see, this will be palate, do you see, this will be the tongue, do you see, larynx, pharynx, esophagus, trachea. Trachea divides into the bronch. Bronch will go to the lungs. This will be heart. This will be diaphragm. In stomach, liver, duodenum, cecum with vermiform process, ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon. That's all. And here from duodenum will be continuation of the loops of the small intestine. Do you see? Here behind of the stomach, do you see, will be pancreas. Here behind of the right and left flexure of the large intestine will be kidneys. If you remember, I said you, vagus nerve, it developed together with glossopharyngeal and accessory because it has the same nuclei, some same nuclei. This will be ambiguous nucleus. Do you see? From it exits, do you see, the motor portion, do you see, and will come to the larynx by laryngeal superior branch, and do you see, and it will come into the, do you see, thoracic cavity and comes back, do you see, to the larynx again, and it is called recurrence laryngeal nerve, opposite laryngeal nerve. When it directs below and when it comes back, it will call the laryngeal inferior. And do you see, it will control the muscles of the pharynx and it will control the muscles of the soft palate. We have palatine motor branch, we have the pharyngeal motor branch, we have laryngeal superior and laryngeal inferior, which is the continuation of the recurrence laryngeal. Why I ask your attention to the recurrence laryngeal? For what the vagus nerve has recurrence laryngeal? The vagus nerve, do you see, it will come into the abdominal, into the thoracic cavity by wall of the esophagus. Do you remember I said you, the vegetative nerves don't go alone. They go by nerves, somatic, by vessels, and here each vagus nerve, right and left, will join to the anterior posterior side of the esophagus. But if it doesn't go alone, at first the motor portion brings it to the esophagus. And after that, the vegetative portion will continue traveling by wall of the esophagus. And the motor portion will come back to the larynx. Do you see? Because it is called recurrence laryngeal inferior. And when it enters into the larynx from lower, it is called laryngeal inferior. Did you understand? You can see this is whole motor part of the vagus nerve. Sensory part, you can see this is, I draw by last time because do you see, confuse. This is cerebral phase and cerebral and cerebellar tentorium, by which I wanted to inform you about meninges of the brain. All meninges of the brain, but how I will draw on the schema, I draw like cerebral phase. And another, this will be ear. This will be a meningeal nerve. From meninges will go, do you see, by dendrites to the inferior, do you see, or to the superior jugular, do you see, ganglion, and after that to the solitarius nucleus. From skin, do you see, of the ear, do you see, will go to the inferior some fibers, or some fibers to the superior jugular ganglion. We have only two sensory branches. Jugular ganglions will be same, do remember, for the glossopharyngeal and vagus, but at first through the development, this was one ganglion and it's separated into two parts. One will locate above than the upper border of the jugular opening, another will, do you see, will be below. This is sensory portion, auricle nerve and the meningeal nerve. Vegetative portion. Vegetative portion begins from very biggest dorsal nucleus of the vagus nerve. Dorsal nucleus of the vagus nerve. It will pass, you see, through the jugular opening. You can see, why do you see recurrent laryngeal nerve? Do you see it will come to the esophagus and will travel by esophagus. Listen to me, this is vegetative part. You know, vegetative part must come to the organs only through the stations. There will be decreasing of the impulse, yes? And these stations will be ganglions, parasympathetic ganglions. They are not special like we studied on the head, do you see? These ganglions divide into two groups. Some of them are called extra-organal ganglions, and do you see the all ganglions which we studied with you, the ciliar ganglions, the aortic ganglions, sublingual, submandibular, pterygopodan, they are extra-organal. They are placed near the organs, yes? And some ganglions, they are placed in the walls of the organs if they are hollow. If we have, do you see, the lungs, in the hilus of the lungs will be ganglions. After multiplication, impulse will come to the mucous glands and to the muscular sheet of the terminal bronchiole, you can see. But for the heart, we have two groups of the ganglions, about which I informed you. Do you remember? We have superficial, do you see? We have extra-organal, do you see, ganglions, which divide into the superficial and deep. And we studied with you the intra-organal ganglions, which are placed between epicardium and myocardium, between layers of the myocardium and between endocardium and myocardium. Because this will be, do you see, the two groups of the ganglions. Do you see, if the organs, they are parenchymatoses, the ganglions are placed in the door, in the hilus. If the organs, do you see, are tube, like stomach, like intestine, do you see, the ganglions force the decreasing of the impulse by multiplication. Multiplication, what is multiplication? Do you know? From the nucleus, it is formed by some bodies of the cells. And body of the vegetative cell, this gives axon. Axon comes to the ganglion and divides into the terminal ends. And each terminal end does individual synapse with, do you see, cells which are collection in the ganglion. You can see one axon brought the biggest pocket of the order, and cells, do you see, divide this order between them, do you see? And each cell will take the very smaller. And each cell will bring, do you see, this motor order to the some group, do you see, of the myositis or smooth myositis, or to the some group of the secretion tissue. Because when the one axon divides into the many, it is called multiplication. The impulse from center directs to the organs, do you see, through the stations. These stations for the decreasing of the velocity of the impulse. Now, for example, now I will push her, if she will laugh. Today she laughs, looks at me and laughs. Now I will push her by middle, and she will do reflex. Do you see? This is very fast, do you see? This is somatic reflex. It goes by 120 meters in 1 second. Listen to me. Try to associate. If the vegetative impulse will come to the intestine with velocity which will be near 120 meters in 1 second. Do you see? We will sleep, we will live, we will study in the toilet. Because, do you see, peristaltic movements which intestine does, do you see, these are lesser velocity of these movements. This is lesser velocity of the movements. Do you remember the sphincter pupil muscle? Do you see, it contracts slowly. Do you see, the heart? Do you see, it doesn't contract like here. Do you see? Because vegetative impulse comes to the organs with very lesser velocity, and they work slowly. Do you see? This is only scheme for the innervation of the organs by vegetative part. Somatic part, you can see auricle and meningeal. These will be sensory. Laryngeal, superior, laryngeal, inferior, do you see? Palatine, pharyngeal. This will be motor. And listen to me, the smaller portion of the root of the tongue, near 2 centimeters, which join to the epiglottis, do you see, they are controlled by, do you see, sensory branch. Solitarius, ambiguous, and dorsal nucleus of the vagus nerve, these, do you see, are elements of the one family, because they contact. If, do you see, sensory information comes, do you see, to the solitarius nucleus can inform dorsal nucleus of the vagus nerve. Do you know acupuncture of the auricle? Do you see? And listen to me, here auricle has shape like embryo, and here we have projection of the all regions of the body. And listen to me, when we will do electric stimulation, do you see, no, maybe not electric, maybe mechanic, do you see, stimulation by, do you see, needles, the ear. The auricle branch brings information to the solitarius. Solitarius gives to the dorsal nucleus of the vagus nerve, and we can do correction of the something. Do you understand? For example, meningitis, inflammation of the meninges. Do you see? Do you see information about meningitis comes to the solitarius nucleus. Solitarius nucleus informs dorsal nucleus of the vagus nerve, and we have bradycardia, slowly contraction of the heart, because for all another tissues will be increasing of the function, for the heart will be decreasing by this nucleus. And also, you see, if we come to the this information to the dorsal nucleus of the vagus nerve, very often by meningitis can be vomiting. Did you understand? This is the vagus nerve to which we will come by next semester.
The vegetative portion of the vagus nerve, it innervates to the every part of the intestine, right?
Except sigmoid and except rectum.
Okay.
Here will be innervation from lumbar part of the spinal cord, from lumbar segment, from sacral segments, excuse me, from sacral segments of the spinal cord, which are placed in the lumbar region. Так, another nerves, they are very easy. You can see. Brainstem.